Okay, we're still in the land of Leo this coming week, a fixed sign. But perhaps taking a walk on the wild side is still in the air. And, I'm going to almost immediately here go over to the chart. And the reason why is because even though, Leo is a fixed sign, when I look at the chart for this week, I go, we got Mercury retrograde and Venus over here in Virgo. We've got Mars sneaking in to conjoin with Jupiter in Gemini, and we've got our two Piscean planets, Neptune and Saturn, over here in Pisces. These are what are referred to as mutable signs, and the mutable signs of the zodiac, Sagittarius is also included in this, are the signs that have to do with making changes. They represent the third sign in any quadrant, and as such, the function or the functionality of how they play the energy pattern is that they say, well, the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, they initiate things, they get things going. Fixed signs come along and say, well, you got some things going. These are our Taurus, Leo, where our sun is right now, Scorpio, and Aquarius. You say, let's try to focus the energy of what was initiated by each of these, cardinal systems that were set up to work with. Mutable signs come along and say, it's been kind of great to do the things that you started and have really focused in on and, kind of made something meaningful from, but it's time for a change. This is what the function of the mutable signs are, that Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. We've done things a certain way for a certain amount of time. It's now time to, get ready for the next cardinal moment. But in order to get to that cardinal moment, things need to be altered, changed, rearranged, if you were, so that we can come to a conclusion of what it was that was initiated and, clear the decks so that something new can be born. Yeah, that's the function of those mutable third signs in each of the quadrants. Now, so many different ways I can take this. We begin the week with the first quarter moon. Sun here at 20 degrees of Leo, moon here at 20 degrees of Scorpio. That initial square of the moon to the sun asks a question, what is it that I started at the beginning of this particular lunar cycle? This was, remember, at like 12 degrees Leo or something like that. What were the dynamics in play then that when I reach this first quarter moon, I have to ask a question, Yeah, I began with an idea or an intention, if you will. When I get to this first quarter moon, it's like, Dane Rudger, crisis in action. Well, this is the expanding or waxing moon phase. So the action side of the equation is emphasized. But at that first quarter, you have to say, I've initiated a lot of things, Perhaps it's time to, make a determination as to what is and what isn't relevant as I'm going forward, based on what that intention I set was, because quite often you get to this first quarter moon and you kind of go, man, I look at my to-do list and it's got like umpteen different things that, have showed up as, these are some vital things that I need to take care of. So the first quarter moon is kind of a chance to say, what do I really need to do? What is worthwhile and what can I let go of in order to focus more in on the most appropriate way forward in this particular lunar dance cycle that we are in right now, which began in that, curiosity, that challenging, changing, taking chances kind of energy of Leo. And here we have the first quarter moon in Scorpio saying, how deep are you willing to really look into that Leonian dance you began right now? Because when we get to Scorpio, it's kind of like there are versions of mysteries, perhaps percolating around the edges of the experience that you are a part of that are saying, look at me, look at me. I've got something interesting to show you, and it's going to change the reality of what it is that you thought you were doing. So, this is Monday. There are a lot of things that go on this week. Let's just go on. I have some playthings to go on in the background here as well, so we'll get to that. Maybe we'll get to that. We get to Tuesday, Mars Day. What do we have? Oh, look here. Mars and Jupiter are holding hands here at 16 degrees of Gemini. There's and they're also, if you'll notice, 16 degrees of Gemini is not that far away from 17 degrees of Pisces as far as this being a square aspects. So you kind of look at how is Saturn practicality in the land of, what shall we call it? Illusion. Practicality in the land of illusion in square to this Gemini perspective of a curiosity factor. I want to turn over these stones that I haven't turned over before and see what's underneath. And Mars is kind of like, I got that impulse. I want to do that. And Jupiter is saying, don't hold back. These two energies coming together here in Gemini. How are they going to stimulate that realm where things are not necessarily as clear as you might hope, but still seeking for some level of practicality in it? I can only look at, when I'm doing these weeklies, a consideration of, kind of like the image behind me, a lot of energy vibrations, dancing within and without of each other, an experience of, at the collective level, I can point to energetic options that are out there, but at an individual level, do you have a Gemini side? We all have a Gemini side. Is it being tickled by that 16 degrees of Gemini? Because if so, then, perhaps there are factors of the words that I'm using right now that this Saturn practicality are saying, well, hold on there, mister. What do you mean you want to be, too friggin' questionings, always questionings. And, lest we forget, the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, over here in Virgo, retrograde. Remember, the trickster can always be on board when Mercury is retrograde. So, are we being practical? What are we being practical about? Because there's a drive and energy that, is stimulating questions. Mercury retrograde is saying, be clear on what those questions that you're asking are, because if you're not, I may throw a curveball in there. Yes, Mercury retrograde. Often it has a curveball kind of nature to it. These two planets, Mars and Jupiter, they're going to be doing this dance for a couple, 3 days. I see. And if depending on how you want to play with orbs, they've been in orb for a while. And they will be in orb. So if you kind of put together a week window, and I don't mean WEAK, I mean a week like in you know, 7 days shot of energy that's saying, this energy's in play. Oh, and just to make it a little bit more exciting, as Moon has gone into Sagittarius, the other of the mutable signs, it's gone out of bounds. Let's take a look here. Yeah, see that? 2449 degrees south. And this is a latitude thing, up and down. And the moon is in the south things. And, what you might observe if you happen to be in an area where you can actually see the moon, we're right now in, some of that foggy, smoky kind of areas where trying to actually see the celestial things at night doesn't always pan out that well. It's still there though. That moon out of bounds for this week is saying, can you feel, do you have a sense that there are, things afoot that wouldn't normally, you wouldn't normally feel the way you feel. It's the moon after all. And, it's in Sagittarius right now as it goes out of bounds. And so, what is your version of the big picture? That's Sagittarius. What does your philosophy of life inspire within you to, remember we're still in Leo, take chances? Let's go ahead a couple more days. You can kind of see that Mars has now moved to the other side, but as it does so, it comes into exact square with that Saturn. So we've already discussed that, so I don't need to really go on to Mercury. Mercury has shifted backwards, back into Leo. So might there be that energy of, gambling? Being a little bit more creative in what it is that we want to do, how we want to interact with other people. It's Leo after all. Always remember, the trickster could be on board for this experience. I'm going to go through the week a little bit faster this time because there are other things that I want to play with. A couple more days forward. Saturday. We're at Saturday. Look at that. Jupiter now has reached the 17 degrees of Gemini in square to Saturn. So this is one of those signatures. It's got this lingering quality. And Saturn and Jupiter, they're said to represent the social side of our human equation. And it's kind of a push me, pull you energy. Saturn wants to be practical, contain things and stuff, and Jupiter, anything but. It wants to expand the reality of investigation and wants to, be in Gemini right now, wants to be curious, wants to stimulate a largesse quality to everything it touches. Saturn in that realm of, what do we want to call it? It's not clarity that always comes through as, we might define it in our, overtly too human level that Pisces represents, because the possibility for illusion is always on board there when you try to, what should we, pigeonhole, shoehorn uh, a an enormous sense of reality, Pisces, into a limited human perspective that says, I can't go beyond the walls of limitation that, Saturn has set up for me. And yet, if I don't, perhaps I'm curtailing aspects of my beingness that are, percolating under the surface, or maybe even just a little bit closer to the surface, saying, wake me up, wake me up. I want to show you something. And on this day, Saturday, the moon, remember, this is one of those weeks where it's out of bounds, is toying with, that deep, deep, deep zone of Pluto in those early degrees of Aquarius, saying, do you sense, are you aware of that there are things afoot that are being, exposed to the collective right now, and the moon out of bounds, coming into a dance with that Pluto is saying, let's take a chance. Let's take a chance. And you might notice here, the Sun and Mercury are coming together. We get to Sunday, the last day of the week. There it is. The Sun and Mercury at 26 degrees of Leo. They're together again, going in opposite directions. This is also a time when, it is said that this is a Cassimi. And the Sun, Mercury being retrograde, means that it's in between the Sun and the Earth. Earth being right here in the middle, remember? That's where we are. And Mercury being Cassimi says, is being given permission by the Sun to, do things that it wouldn't generally be given the opportunity to do, because the regality or royalty of the Sun as king, queen, ruler recognizes the presence of Mercury and says, what do you have to say, Mercury, in this situation? I'm giving you the permission to take a chance, to do something that you wouldn't normally have the option to do. Sit on the chair, sit on the throne, make an edict, if you will. That's a pretty dynamic set of energies to play with to culminate this week. Now, for that one more plaything that I have is, I'm playing around with my, these are astro dice. They're dodecahedron, 12-sided dice. They have the 12 signs, the 12 houses, the 12 planets. And this is kind of a divination thing to see, who wants to come out and play today in this dance that we're contemplating doing, What planet in what house and what sign may want to grab our attention and say, hey, Jeff, and this, you may have one of these kind of situations. If you are, consider yourself fortunate. So we roll the dice. We have Mars in Leo in the 5th house. Yeah, trust me. Mars and Leo in the 5th house. I was going to try and hold them up, but those 12-sided coins, they're just a little bit squirrely when you hang on to them. Mars and Leo, that driving kind of Martian energy in the sign of taking chances in the 5th house, the Leo house, Mars in Leo in the 5th house. This is the kind of energy that, I would say, this would be a good time to go on a date, because I've got that impulsive driving energy, to experiment with the process of fifth house creativity and taking chances with, how is it that the world is going to respond to me if I put this out and I don't hold it back in some fashion. I, cut loose the bonds that might be been holding me back. Take a chance, ask that pretty girl over there. Maybe she might be interested in going on a date. And if not, well, at least you're going to find out. Take a chance with the boy. He's curious. You can sense the curiosity there. This is the kind of energy that Mars and Leo in the fifth house might bring for us to, at a divination level, toy with. In this particular moment, and those of you that happen to have Mars and Leo in the fifth house, you're a force to be reckoned with. Your adventurousness, shall we say, may not be everybody's cup of tea, and yet, try and hold it back. I don't think so. There's a, there's a, there's a desire to dance, and dancing by yourself, it can only go so far. This is the opportunity to, ask others to join you in this dance. See if maybe there's some level of a harmonic in play that, wasn't there until you made the request. Anyway, that's all I have for this next week. And by all means, I was going to say don't do what I wouldn't do, but I'm adventurous. I have a creative side that doesn't know, the idea of limitation. No, Leo, I'm an Aquarius opposite from Leo. So I picked up some of that Leonian energy back along the way that says, how do I know until I don't, until I try? I want to take that gamble. I want to ask that person a question that they may not have expected. So, what's the energy this week? It's mutable. We're getting ready for some change. It's also fixed, but getting ready to, take the next step into something new that wants to be born. Okay, that's all I got for this week. Everyone, thanks a lot, and stay tuned. We'll be back next week.